"Don't look at him," the guard screamed. Too late. Alaris had already met the Alpha King's silver eyes. In that heartbeat, her world turned white. Vision gone, soul marked, fate sealed. As she fell, his voice cut through the darkness. "I warned them. Whoever touches me loses more than sight." But why then, in the silence after, did his hand tremble when it found hers? If that moment froze your heart, when his hand trembled instead of killing her, hit subscribe before the next heartbeat fades. And tell me in the comments, was it mercy or the curse learning to love? When Alaris wakes, the world is only sound. The hiss of rain, the crackle of dying torches, and a heartbeat that isn't hers. He's there again, the Alpha who stole her eyes and her fate, kneeling beside her as though penance could rewrite the curse. "You should hate me," Kaelin murmurs. "I took everything from you." Her lips curve faintly. "Then why do I feel safer in your darkness than I ever did in the light?" Outside, wolves wail beneath the wounded moon, and in that echo of pain and devotion, the first thread of doomed love tightens around them both. The wolves' cries fade into the heartbeat of the palace, slow, uneven, like the world itself is afraid to breathe. Alaris sits upright on the silken bed she does not remember lying in. The air smells of burned myrrh and snow. Her hands, trembling, find the edge of a blanket that feels too fine for a maid, too soft for a prisoner. Beneath her palms, the fabric hums faintly, like it's alive with power. She flinches when the door opens. The footsteps are measured, heavy. She knows them now, the way the marble echoes beneath his stride, the way the air bends with his presence before he even speaks. "Drink," Kaelin says. His voice is quieter than before, but it carries command like thunder muffled in velvet. A goblet touches her fingertips. Alaris hesitates. "You shouldn't be here," she murmurs. A pause, the scrape of a chair being drawn closer. "This is my chamber." "Then I shouldn't be here." The corner of his breath catches, half a sigh, half a laugh with no joy. "You say that, and yet the curse disagrees." The word curse tightens something deep in her chest. She grips the cup too hard. Liquid spills down her wrist, warm as blood. "What did you do to me?" she whispers. "Why can't I see?" Kaelin doesn't answer immediately. The silence between them stretches, full of ghosts and guilt. When he finally speaks, it's almost gentle. "The goddess demanded balance. I broke her law. You were the price." Her breath shakes. "You stole my sight to pay for your sin?" "No," he says, voice trembling now. "I gave her mine, but she took yours instead." The fire crackles. Somewhere outside, thunder rolls against the horizon. Alaris turns her face toward the sound, toward anything that isn't him. "Then you should have let me die." "I tried." The confession escapes like a wound torn open. "And she refused to let me. The truth hangs between them, colder than the storm." He rises and she feels the warmth of his hand hover near her cheek, never touching, always just out of reach. "Rest," he murmurs. "The blindness is not your punishment, it's your protection." Her lips part to ask what he means, but the door closes before the words can form. Night drags itself across the palace like a wounded animal. The maids whisper when they think she cannot hear. The blind girl from the hunt, the one he cursed, the one the moon kept alive. They leave her in a small chamber adjoining the royal hall, a place for the forgotten. But even here, she feels him. The air changes when Kaelin walks the corridors. Her skin prickles when he passes by, though she never hears his boots. It's as if the bond has taught her to sense what her eyes once saw. Days bleed into one another. She works, she listens, she learns to move by the pulse of sound and shadow. But always, he watches. One night, thunder shakes the palace. The torches gut her out. Alaris stumbles through darkness that feels thicker than blindness. She follows the echo of distant voices, the panic of servants. A sound draws her further, a man's breathing, ragged and too close. She finds him in the throne room, alone, kneeling. Kaelin's hands glow with silver light that burns through his veins like molten chains. The curse is alive again. It coils around him, tearing through the marble, cracking the very air. "Get out," he snarls, his voice more beast than man. But she doesn't move. "Please," he gasps. "If you touch me now, you'll die." She takes one step forward, then another. "Then let me die knowing what this is." When her hand brushes his arm, the world stops. No pain, no burning, just silence, followed by a single heartbeat shared between them. The curse recoils, the silver flames dim. His power folds inward, like a storm learning stillness for the first time. Kaelin stares at her, stunned. "How—" Alaris swallows, feeling the echo of his pulse in her chest. "You said it would kill me." "It should have," he whispers, "but it didn't." Later, in the echoing dark, she dreams of voices whispering her name. A woman's tone, ageless, sharp as moonlight. "She carries the curse now," the voice says, "but not its wrath, only its bond." She wakes with a gasp, hand pressed to her heart. Beneath her palm, the mark burns faintly. An ancient sigil she cannot see, but feels like fire threading through her veins. At dawn, Kaelin summons her. He stands by the balcony, pale light spilling over his face. "Do you know what happened last night?" he asks. She shakes her head. "You took what was mine. The curse, its hunger, it's gone from me. But it's in you now." Alaris's throat tightens. "Then I'm doomed." "No," he says, stepping closer. "You're chosen." The word frightens her more than doomed ever could. He lifts a hand but stops an inch from her face, the restraint carving pain across his expression. "If I touch you now," he murmurs, "it might wake the fire again." "Then don't touch me," she says. "Just tell me why it hurts less when you're near." Kaelin closes his eyes. "Because the curse doesn't hate you. It remembers you." Outside, the wounded moon rises again, watching, waiting, listening. And for the first time, Alaris understands. The blindness that stole her sight has given her something else entirely. A tether, a bond, a power that beats in rhythm with the Alpha King's curse. The palace is no longer silent. It's alive, with her heartbeat and his, intertwined beneath the goddess's cruel gaze. As she drifts to sleep, silver light begins to bloom beneath her skin again. Somewhere deep in the palace, Kaelin wakes, clutching his chest, the mark on his heart burning in answer. The temple courtyard breathes frost. Above it, the red moon hangs swollen and low, bleeding light onto the marble like an omen no prayer can scrub away. Alaris stands beside Kaelin, the silver of their shared mark hidden beneath her sleeve. Every whisper in the crowd is a blade drawn behind a tongue. She walks in blindness, yet the king follows her shadow. She carries the curse's second heart. High Priestess Serenia steps forward, veil glimmering like ash. "Majesty," she begins, "you forget what the scriptures warned. To love the marked girl is to summon ruin." Her gaze cuts to Alaris. "And you, child? How many lives will you cost him this time?" The words strike like stones. Alaris flinches, but Kaelin's hand hovers near hers, not touching, steady as gravity. "Enough," he says, voice low. "If ruin comes, it will wear my name, not hers." Serenia lifts her arms toward the crimson moon. "Then so be it. Let the goddess bear witness to your defiance." The air trembles. The temple bells begin to toll. Not in warning, but in recognition. The prophecy wakes. That night, Alaris cannot sleep. She dreams of snow and fire, of a blade flashing silver, of her own scream looping through centuries. From the darkness comes a voice, soft, endless, feminine. "You once died for him. Will you again?" She gasps awake, heart hammering. Her hands find her throat. Her skin glows faintly, the sigil beneath her flesh stirring like a heartbeat not her own. Kaelin bursts into the chamber, drawn by the light spilling beneath her door. "Alaris," he says, crossing the floor. "What happened?" Her voice shakes. She spoke to me, the moon. She remembers us. He kneels beside her bed. The light dances across his face, painting him in the color of surrender. Then she knows what I've done. What have you done? I've begun to love you. The air seems to hold its breath. Then, silence, broken only by the crackle of the fire. Days pass in unease. Kaelin orders the guards from the training grounds and begins teaching her in secret. They stand barefoot on cold stone at dawn, the world muffled in mist. Listen, he says, not with fear, with pulse. He walks around her in slow circles, each step measured. Life has sound, even pain hums when it remembers warmth. Alaris closes her sightless eyes, breathing steady. At first, she hears only wind. Then, his heart. Steady, reluctant, afraid. I can hear you, she whispers. Then find me. She follows the rhythm, moving through space until her fingertips hover before his chest. The bond hums. The mark beneath her skin flares in answer. Her breath catches. I see you, she murmurs. Not your face, but the way your sorrow bends the air. Kaelin exhales, something between a laugh and a prayer. Then perhaps the curse gave you truth instead of eyes. That evening, the prophecy's weight grows heavier. Every time they touch, even by accident, the moonlight deepens from red to scarlet. The palace windows quiver with unseen wind. Alaris begins to sense life beyond Kaelin. The heartbeat of the wolves, the ache of servants who fear their king. Compassion floods her until it hurts. At midnight, she collapses in the corridor. Kaelin catches her, shouting her name. Her veins blaze with light, the same cruel, beautiful radiance that once stole her sight. Alaris, he cries, cradling her trembling body. She gasps, voice breaking. It's back. The light, the one that blinded me. Kaelin holds her tighter, even as silver burns along his arms. Then let it burn through me this time. The mark on her palms erupts, flooding the hall with white fire that eats the shadows and leaves only silence. When the flames fade, Alaris lies still in his arms, her sightless eyes open, silver flickering beneath the lids, like dawn behind clouds. The curse has remembered her. The northern tower hums with silence too loud to be peace. Stormlight seeps through the stone, thin, silvery veins crawling over black marble, pulsing with each thunderclap like a heart that refuses to die. Kaelin stands before the tall, arched window, his breath misting the glass. The sky outside burns white every few seconds, lightning crawling through the clouds like cracks in heaven. His reflection shudders with it. Not a man, but a shadow rimmed with light, veins flickering beneath skin like molten silver. He grips the sill until the stone crumbles. It's happening again. The curse that once turned kingdoms to ash stirs beneath his flesh, whispering, "Feed me." He can feel it tasting the air, searching for her. "Not her," he growls. "Not again." But the curse answers in the only language it knows. Pain. His hands shake, flames lick between his fingers, devouring the cuff of his robe. The fire eats, but doesn't consume him. It never has. Instead, it crawls over him like armor, carving old sigils across his chest. Marks that bleed light rather than blood. He staggers back, breath catching. He can feel Alaris even now. Somewhere below, her heartbeat steady, her presence pulling the fury from him like a tide. And that, he knows, is the danger. Because the closer she comes, the more the curse hungers to claim her. Below, in her chamber, Alaris wakes to the sound of thunder bleeding through the walls. She can feel him. Even blind, she feels him. A pulse, heavy and hot, hammering at the edges of her mind. She sits up, reaching for the wall. Her palms tingle. The mark under her skin burns softly, as if answering a call she never meant to hear. "Kaelin," she whispers. The air shifts. Something unseen brushes the edge of her consciousness. Not a voice, not words, but emotion, agony, guilt, restraint, breaking like glass. She rises, barefoot, following the pull. Servants cry out as she passes, the blind maid moving through the corridors as though led by invisible hands. The castle groans around her, walls sweating frost one moment, steam the next. She doesn't stop. Every step feels like walking into a storm. The tower stairs rise endlessly, twisting tighter, colder, alive. When she reaches the final landing, her skin is soaked with rain. The door ahead glows faintly, its handle burning from the inside. She doesn't hesitate. The moment her palm meets the door, it bursts open with a hiss of light. Kaelin is on his knees. Fire runs along his arms like veins of lightning, his body shaking with the effort of keeping it contained. The scent of smoke and iron fills the air. "Elaris," he chokes, eyes snapping toward her voice. "Go back." She takes one step forward. "I can't." "Please," he begs, the word foreign in his mouth. You don't understand, but she does. She remembers the dream, the moon's whisper. You once died for him. Will you again? She knows now what it meant. The curse is waking, and if he breaks, the kingdom burns. "Let me help you." His laughter is ragged, broken. "Help me? You can't even see me." "I don't need to." The words stop him. The fire wavers. She steps closer, guided not by sight but by pulse, by the rhythm of his suffering. Each breath she takes draws her toward him until the air itself hums between them, alive, waiting. "Elaris," he warns, voice fraying. "If you touch me, you'll die." "Then I'll die knowing I tried." She kneels before him, her palms trembling. The heat radiates off him like a forge, unbearable, alive, divine. Still, she reaches out. Her fingers brush his jaw. The curse screams. Light explodes around them, a violent halo of silver twisting through the air like a storm that found its shape. Kaelin's roar shakes the chamber. Fire climbs the walls, racing toward the ceiling, seeking release. Elaris doesn't pull away. She presses her hand to his cheek, her tears hissing against the heat. "Listen to me," she whispers. "You are not your fire." He shudders, choking on the sound. "You think words can—" "Yes," she interrupts, fierce, sure, "because they're mine." And for a single breath, the curse listens. The flames collapse inward. The light folds back into his skin. He falls forward, catching himself on his hands, breath ragged, body smoking. Elaris gasps as her own skin flares, her mark igniting. Pain lances up her arms, white and blinding, and yet she does not scream. Their bond seals deeper. Kaelin looks up, and for the first time in years there is color in his eyes. Not silver, not moonlight, but grey, raw and human. "What did you do?" he whispers. Elaris sways, half conscious. "I took half your fire." He stares at her hands. The light under her skin burns softer now, threaded with veins of his own power. He can feel her heartbeat inside his chest, steady, alive. "You shouldn't have," he says, voice breaking. She smiles faintly. "I never should have done anything, and yet, here we are." When dawn crawls over the horizon, the storm breaks. Servants find scorch marks spiraling up the tower walls, melted stone pooling like glass. But no bodies, no corpses, only the echo of something divine that has learned to breathe again. In the great hall, Kaelin sits slumped on the throne, crown cast aside, eyes distant. The high priestess Serenia stands before him, her face pale beneath the weight of prophecy. "You've bound her to you," she says quietly. "You've defied the moon's decree." He doesn't argue. "I saved her." Serenia steps closer, robes whispering. "And doomed yourself." "She carries the curse now," he says. "No," the priestess corrects. "She carries its memory. You've split it, half in her veins, half in yours. Two halves of a sin that cannot be erased." Kaelin's jaw tightens. "Then let the goddess strike us both." Serenia's voice softens. "She will, in time." She glances at Elaris, who stands near the dais, eyes bandaged anew, face pale but calm. The priestess sighs, not unkindly. "Child, do you know what you've done?" Alaris tilts her head. "I've given him something to lose." That night, the palace grows too still. Kaelin isolates himself again, this time not to protect others, but to keep from watching her die. He sits alone in the tower, hands folded over his chest, feeling the curse thrum faintly between their hearts like a thread stretched across eternity. Every pulse of her breath down below steals from his own. Every sigh of hers fills him with borrowed warmth. It is unbearable. And yet, he cannot sever it. He tries. Gods, he tries. He calls upon ancient seals, the blood sigils of his ancestors, but the bond refuses. Each attempt only sends a jolt of pain through both of them, echoing across the palace. Alaris feels it. She feels everything. When lightning strikes the highest spire, she rises from her bed, guided by that invisible tether, and climbs the stairs again. The guards do not stop her. They've learned by now that she moves as if fate itself clears her path. When she reaches the tower, the door stands open. The air is heavy with rain and guilt. Kaelin kneels before the window, a silhouette against the storm, his shoulders shaking. "You shouldn't have come," he murmurs. "I told you," she says softly. "I can't stay away." He turns, eyes burning faintly, face lit by the cold flicker of lightning. "I killed your sight, Alaris. I ruined you." She steps forward barefoot on the cold stone. "Then ruin me again if it keeps you human." He flinches. "Don't say things you don't mean. Don't pretend you don't hear the truth when I do." The words hang there. Something cracks, not in the air, but inside him. He rises slowly. His curse ripples beneath his skin, begging to be freed, to consume her, but her presence softens it. Her voice lowers. "You're afraid of what happens if you love me." "I'm afraid of what happens when I can't stop," he confesses. She closes the distance between them. "Then stop fighting." The storm howls through the tower window. Rain lashes their faces like tears the sky couldn't hold. Kaelin's hand trembles as he lifts it, not to touch her, but to trace the outline of her cheek without contact. The air between them crackles. "If I kiss you," he says, voice shaking, "the goddess herself will wake." "Then let her watch," she whispers. He breaks. Their lips meet, fire and frost colliding. Light erupts through the tower, shattering every candle, bending every shadow. The curse howls in delight, tasting freedom through love. For one suspended moment, the entire world seems to hold its breath. Then, silence. When the fire fades, Alaris collapses against him. Her body glows faintly, veins silvered, her heartbeat echoing in his chest. He catches her before she falls. "Alaris," he whispers, "look at me." She opens her eyes. They are no longer blind, but they are not human either. Her irises shimmer like liquid metal, reflecting his face in endless fragments. She gasps. "I can see you." He exhales a shuddered breath. The curse moved. "No," she says softly, "it's shared." He touches her face for the first time without fear, and feels warmth, not pain. "What are you?" he asks. Her smile is small, tired. "Your balance." Thunder growls across the horizon. The goddess's voice trembles through the storm. "Love her, and kingdoms will fall." Kaelin looks down at her glowing skin, at the faint pulse of light connecting their hearts, then let them fall. When dawn rises, the northern tower stands silent, its windows scorched black from within. Inside, only two sets of footprints remain, one heavy, one light, burned into the stone, circling each other like twin moons destined to eclipse. Dawn doesn't warm the palace, it judges it. Smoke threads the corridors, and ash lies like frost over the black marble. In the first grey light, servants find what the night left behind. Two charred spirals of footprints burned into stone, circling each other, like twin moons that once eclipsed. Bells begin to toll, The sanctum summons. Kaelin does not resist. He carries Alaris in his arms, her body still faintly aglow beneath the skin, her breath shallow but steady. The corridor empties before him, as if the air remembers fear. He passes under broken arches and prayer-haunted tapestries until the doors of the Temple of Mirrors yawn open like a mouth that has already decided the taste of them. Inside, there are almost no mirrors left. Shattered silver hangs in the air, suspended by threads of prayer and old moonlight. The floor reflects 100 broken versions of the same two people. An alpha king with fire bruises on his throat, a blind girl whose eyes now hold a mirrored dawn. The High Seer steps forward, veil lifted. Her irises are uncolored glass. She sees everything by what it costs. "Lay her there," she says, pointing to the cracked altar. Kaelin lowers Alaris onto the fractured slab. The remaining mirrors turn slightly, like falcons fixing a target. A half-circle of counselors kneel behind the seer, their lips moving in prayers that shave themselves into sharpened law. Alaris stirs. "Where?" "In the place where truth has nowhere to hide," the seer answers. She studies the thin filigree of silver climbing Alaris's wrists. "The tower did not kill you. Of course it didn't. Curses love witnesses." Kaelin's voice roughens. "Name the cure, seer." "There is no cure," she replies, almost kindly. "Only choosing." He stiffens. "Then I choose." "You choose nothing," a counselor snaps, rising. "You caused this. You brought ruin to our gates. The fields rot, the people starve. Your love is famine dressed as mercy." Kaelin turns his head, slowly, dangerously. "Speak of love again with your mouth full of fear." The seer lifts a hand. The air stills. "Enough. The moon does not need your rhetoric to end them. She needs memory." Alaris's fingers curl against the altar. "I dreamed of a river," she whispers, in a voice that asked if I would die for him again. "Because you already have," the seer replies. "The girl who kissed a god's fire to save a man has never been allowed to remain in one life. You are the echo your own sacrifice made." Kaelin's breath snags. "You're saying—" "You two are a repetition," the seer says. "Not a mistake, a lesson that refuses to be learned." The council erupts. Prayers, curses, all of it the same sound. The seer's staff strikes stone. Silence falls like a guillotine. "Listen," she says. The mirrors begin to hum. Threads of light stitch themselves between shards. The red moon, though morning rains, bleeds through the roof as if the sky is only a curtain. Kaelin moves to shield Alaris. The seer shakes her head. "Majesty, don't stand between a curse and its reflection." The hum deepens, turns to a chord that finds bone and drags it open. Alaris's eyes slide closed. When they open again, silver pours through them like a tide reversing. A woman's voice arrives without sound. It rides breath. It wears thunder. It is not loud. It is inevitable. One will carry the curse. One will carry the memory. Choose. The council falls prostrate. The seer bows her head. Kaelin does neither. He steps closer to the altar, hands trembling. "Take me," he says, voice shaking but clear. "Give her the forgetting. Make me the burning." Alaris's fingers find his wrist, blind and unerring. "No." He looks down. The silver in her gaze steadies him more than any prayer ever has. "Alaris." "Last time," she says softly, "you burned, and I remembered you alone." Images split the mirrors, centuries layered thin, a queen with moon-white hair kneeling in the same hall, a king crowned in ash, a river swallowing a city of glass, a girl lifting a torch to a god and calling it home. Every life ends in fire and begins as if fire is not waiting. The god voice threads through them. All love is repetition. Kaelin's jaw hardens. "Then let this be the last time." He looks at the seer. "Tell me how to choose." She meets his gaze, and for once looks almost human. One of you must carry the hunger, the living fire, the curse in its teeth. The other must carry the history, every scream, every vow, every time you bled for each other. The kingdom can survive a burning. It cannot survive forgetting what fire taught it. Alaris flinches. To carry memory is to drown awake. To carry curse is to devour yourself, the seer says. Both are deaths. Only one leaves the world wiser. Kaelin turns to Alaris. I carry the fire, she shakes her head, and I carry you until I can't. His mouth opens, shuts. He recognizes the shape beneath her courage, terror dressed as tenderness. He breathes out, finds the hard floor of love under his feet, and steps onto it. No, he says softly, I will not let my mercy make you a grave. She swallows. Then let me be the book, let me keep the pages. If I bear the memory, I can remind you who you are when the hunger starts speaking for you. He whispers, shattered, you will drown, and you will burn. A small smile. We are not strangers to water or to flame. The mirrors brighten until the temple stones throw back their own shadows in surrender. The goddess's voice grows near enough to touch. Choose. Kaelin closes his eyes a long moment. When he opens them, he is king and man both. Alaris carries memory, he says. I carry the curse. The seer closes her eyes. The council hisses like snakes learning to prey. Alaris squeezes his wrist. Together, she adds, and the mirrors pause, as if the moon herself needs a heartbeat to consider audacity. Together, the voice asks, less challenge than curiosity. Alaris lifts her face. Bind us so the burn cannot outrun the lesson. If he devours himself, let my remembering pull him back. If I drown in our past, let his fire warm me to air. One flame, one river, one bond, silence. Then a single, impossible sound. The sensation of a deity smiling without kindness, but with, perhaps, respect. So be it. Light descends. The altar erupts in a column of white that contains every color grief has ever learned. It moves through Alaris first, filling her lungs with the taste of every vow she has ever made. Screams not hers rake her throat. Joys she cannot name lift her sternum until it hurts to breathe. She sees the tower from outside her body. She sees the forest from inside his mind, the night he blinded her, his horror, his begging, his failure. She sees 100 lives learning the same lesson badly, and one life, this one, trying to learn it good enough to end the test. Kaelin arches, back bowing, mouth open on no sound. The living fire pours into him like a tide returning to its favorite shore. It burns but does not command. He shapes it with hands that once only broke. He feels it searching for a target and offers it himself, and it takes the offer because, for the first time, it recognizes mercy as an acceptable heat. He reaches for her. Their fingers interlace above the altar's crack. The seer is crying now, silently, shaking, as the temple records a choice no parchment could hold. When the light breaks, it doesn't vanish. It threads into them, silver stitching along Alaris's veins. A smolder under Kaelin's skin. The mirrors drop from their invisible threads and do not shatter. They land upright, each reflecting a different angle of two people who have just become a single promise. Alaris's voice is a rasp. Kaelin, I'm here. What do you carry? He lifts her joined hands. Heat trembles there, eager, not cruel. Hunger, he says. Willing. She breathes in like a swimmer breaking surface. And I carry us. The council surges to its feet, finding its courage now that the godlight is gone. This is blasphemy, someone shouts. Bind them in iron. Sever the bond before. The temple reacts first. Flames curve down from the vault in delicate arcs that stop a breath before the councillors' faces, not burning. Warning. The seer plants her staff. Enough, the choice is sealed, she says. To defy it now is to die screaming. A hush falls so fast it bruises. Kaelin lifts Alaris from the altar. She is light and heavier than the world. He can feel the river of memory running inside her, pulling his heart forward in its current. He understands, in a sudden and total way, that if he lets his fire turn greedy, it will boil that river dry. He bows his head over her hair. "I won't let my love be a weapon again." "Then let it be a discipline," the seer murmurs. "King, listen. Eat when she speaks your name. Wake when she lays her hand on your chest. When rage says take, answer, remember." Alaris's lips tilt. "And when memory says drown," she whispers, "light a candle." The seer almost smiles. "Yes." Wind presses the temple doors inward. The red moon, impossible in daylight, stains the threshold. From nowhere and everywhere at once, the goddess's voice curls through the cold. "One will burn, one will remember." The words brand the air, settling into the stones, the council's bones, the seer's glass eyes. They do not sound like threat now. They sound like law. Flame scrawls itself across the cracked altar in a final flourish, letters older than speech, then gutters. The prophecy seals itself in flame. One will burn, one will remember. The mirrors go dark. Outside, the blood moon eclipse begins to climb the sky. The blood moon rises over the obsidian palace, turning every tower into a blade of red glass. The air hums with omens. Bells toll in patterns no priest taught them. Rebellion moves like fever through the kingdom. Farmers turn soldiers, priests turn prophets, all whispering the same heresy. The king's love has cursed the land. The palace gates, once symbols of devotion, are now shields against his own people. Kaelin stands at the highest balcony, cloak torn, eyes burning faintly beneath the eclipse. The moonfire in his veins trembles, restless, listening. He can feel their anger below, rising like the tide that once drowned his ancestors. It calls to the part of him that still thinks fire can fix what faith breaks. Majesty. Serenia, the high seer, stands behind him, her veil gone, her voice stripped of ceremony. They breach the lower halls. They carry salt and iron. They mean to end you and the girl both. Kaelin's gaze does not waver from the horizon. Let them come. Your fire won't save her this time, Serenia warns. He turns then, and she flinches at what she sees. The light under his skin is no longer silver. It's white, searing, almost holy. "Then it will end with me," he says quietly. Below, Alaris stands among the trembling servants in the great corridor, hands pressed to the cold wall. She feels the tremors through stone. Hundreds of feet, hundreds of hearts, each one carrying a blade and a prayer that wishes her dead. The prophecy hums in her blood. One will burn, one will remember. She remembers everything. The tower, the mirrors, the night the curse split itself between them. Kaelin's fire breathes inside her veins, but softly, as though afraid to wake. She whispers into the air, "Please don't let him be alone." And the palace answers. Walls groaning, torches flaring to life, shadows lengthening as if moved by pity. The first explosion shakes the west wing. Glass rains down like shattered moons. The scent of oil and fear floods the air. Kaelin descends the grand stairway as arrows blaze through the windows. His soldiers scatter, untrained and terrified. When he reaches the great doors, he draws the sword that once swore allegiance to the moon herself. The metal sings, a sound like mourning and warning braided together. "Leave," he orders the guards. "Majesty, I said leave." They obey because no man who glows like the wrath of creation can be reasoned with. The rebels break through. Dozens of them, faces covered, voices chanting the same curse the priests once whispered behind closed doors. The flame that loved the blind shall blind and then spawned. Shall eat the world. They charge. Kaelin moves like stormlight, a blur of steel and fire. Every swing of his blade leaves an arc of light in the air, every fallen enemy a spark in the growing inferno. He does not fight for victory. He fights for delay, for one more minute before they reach her. But there are too many. One slips through. A shadow carrying a spear, tipped with black iron. It finds him between heartbeats, piercing through his chest before his fire can answer. Alaris screams. Kaelin stumbles. The world tilts. The spearhead glows white-hot as his blood meets the air. Moonfire bursts from the wound like sunrise through stone. The rebels freeze, awe replacing hate. For a heartbeat, they see a god pretending to be a man. Then the palace ignites. The explosion isn't sound, it's memory. Every brick remembers every flame it's ever held, and all of them awaken. Fire races through the corridors, turning banners to smoke and marble to light. Eloise runs toward it. She can't see the way, but she doesn't need to. His heartbeat is her map, steady even as it falters. She finds him at the center of the hall, spear still lodged in his chest, his skin haloed by living fire. "Kaelin!" Her voice reaches him through the roar. He turns, barely. His eyes are no longer grey or silver. They are pure light. "Stay back," he gasps. "I can't stop it this time." She stumbles toward him, heat blistering her skin. "You promised you wouldn't leave me." "I didn't," he says, trembling, voice breaking through the inferno. "I'm taking it with me." "The curse?" He nods. "All of it." Lightning splits the blood moon above. The sound shakes the pillars. Alaris falls to her knees before him, tears hissing as they strike the burning floor. "If you take it, there'll be nothing left of you." He smiles. The kind of smile that forgives even the gods. That's the point. The curse within him howls. The palace ceiling collapses, raining embers and stone. He pulls the spear from his chest, a wet, final sound, and raises it high. Moonfire pours through the wound, devouring the weapon, his robes, his crown. For one eternal moment, the world sees what the goddess saw when she made him her weapon, a man unmade by love, still choosing to love anyway. He steps toward Alaris, every motion burning holes through the floor. She doesn't retreat. He cups her face in hands made of flame. And she does not burn. Their bond holds, stronger than prophecy, stronger than punishment. "I told you once," he murmurs. "If we met again, I would rather burn than forget." Tears run down her cheeks like liquid glass. "Then I'll remember you until the sky forgets its name." He leans forward, pressing his forehead to hers. The fire surges, roaring through the palace like a dying star, taking one last breath. Outside, the rebels kneel in terror as the obsidian palace becomes a pillar of white light that pierces the moon itself. The blood moon cracks and bleeds no more. Hours pass before the storm ends. The fire gutters out with a sigh heard across the valley. When silence returns, the palace is gone. A skeleton of black glass rising from a sea of ash. Smoke curls upward like prayers too late to matter. In the center of the ruin, Alaris kneels in the soot, hands shaking. Around her, the air still hums faintly, like the echo of his name refusing to die. She is alive, barely. The light inside her flickers weakly, threads of silver crawling beneath the grime. Something cold and fragile touches her palm. She opens her hand, and there it is, a crown, warped by heat but intact, and beside it, a single feather of ash, white as moonlight, soft as forgiveness. Her breath breaks. "Kaelin!" The world does not answer. Only the wind moves, whispering through the ruins like a ghost rehearsing an apology. Alaris clutches the feather to her chest. "You said you'd come back." Thunder grumbles on the horizon, low and distant, a sound that could almost be a promise. She ran barefoot in the ruins and begins to walk. The night stretches before her, cold and infinite, and the blood moon finally fades into grey. But the feather in her hand glows faintly, a pulse that keeps time with her heartbeat. When dawn breaks, the kingdom sees the obsidian palace collapsed into a crater of glass. From its heart, a single column of light climbs into the clouds, steady, unending. They say the king died that night. They are wrong. He burned, and somewhere, far above where flame becomes memory, the goddess whispers, "One will burn, one will remember." Winter loosens its fist a finger at a time. The mountains exhale. Ice lets go of stone with the soft crack of a promise released. In a remote valley stitched with low pines and slow rivers, a single cottage leans into the wind and does not fall. Alaris wakes before the light. She always does. Habit or grief that learn the shape of morning. She sits up in the small bed, hair unbound, palm over her ribs where the bond used to burn like a second heart. Now there is only a hush, a coolness, a memory that keeps time in her blood. She rises barefoot and pads across the plank floor. Herbs hang from rafters, frost mint, heartroot, wolf's ear, swinging gently like bells that forgot how to ring. She measures powders by touch, by scent, by how the air tightens when she gets a mixture wrong. Her eyes remain blind. Her hands never miss. They call her the healer of shadows. They never say her name. A boy coughs in the doorway. Alaris turns her head toward the sound and smiles. "Sit by the fire, Taryn," she says. "We'll teach your lungs to forget the storm." He shuffles in, mother close behind, whispers clutched in her throat like talismans. Alaris kneels, mixes a paste, warms it with breath until the room smells of pine and rain. She presses it to the boy's chest, light as a blessing, steady as an oath. The cough loosens. The mother cries without sound. "Drink the rest at moonrise," Alaris says, rising. "Moonrise," the woman repeats, as if the word might behave for her if she holds it carefully enough. They leave coins she does not count. She never takes more than a handful of grain, a scrap of cloth, a story told at the door. When they go, she stands still in the empty room and listens to the cottage settle, the sigh of wood, the hush of ash, the quiet between heartbeats. Outside, snow melts under the moon, though the day sky is pale. Wolves watch from the tree line, their breath braiding the cold. They never cross the fence, not since the night the first one knelt. Now, on every full moon, a pack gathers and does not howl. They lower their heads when she opens the door. Alaris bows back. The valley has learned to live with its ghosts. So has she. At dusk, she walks to the river. The thaw runs silver along its skin, ice breaking like glass giving up its stubbornness. She kneels, cups water to her lips, tastes the mineral bite that always reminds her of the tower. The night the north wind asked if she knew how quickly courage melts. Across the surface, the mountains stretch themselves into long, dark shadows. The river replies with thin light, flickering, there, not there, like someone trying to speak through sleep. Wind lifts the hairs on her arms. She stops breathing, listening. The valley holds itself perfectly still. Then she hears it. Not the river, not the pines. A voice born on distance, shaped by thunder that forgot to fall. "You weren't meant to break me, only to teach me to live." Her hands open. The water spills. The world tilts on an axis that is not the Earth's. For a heartbeat, the cold at her ribs warms. So faint she could call it a lie if she wanted to. She doesn't want to. "Kaelin," she says, and her breath makes a small cloud that looks briefly like a crown before thinning into nothing. The voice does not answer again, but the wind changes. It learns her name and carries it back along the river like a secret switching owners. She walks home slowly. Wet hem whispering against her ankles. At the gate, the wolves part, leaving a path she did not ask for. The smallest falls into step at her heel, as if escorting royalty back to a throne no one kept. Inside, she feeds the fire. The flames behave like well-mannered memories. She eats bread she cannot taste, drinks tea that wants to be consolation and isn't. Night settles. The eclipse's anniversary sits on the horizon like a bruise waiting for its sky. She lies down fully clothed, one hand over her ribs, one over the feather of ash she keeps in a small wooden box beneath the bed. Sometimes she imagines it still warms her palm, sometimes it does. She sleeps and dreams of the obsidian palace, not of its ruin, of the hall before the fire, the banners unburned, the floor a mirror trying hard to be a lake. She stands at its center and feels the first drop of rain fall onto the back of her hand. She looks up. The ceiling is gone. The stars have teeth. Elaris. She turns. He is there, only a shape at first, then a man walking toward her through a corridor that is only light. Don't go, she says, the words breaking as if they have fallen too far. Not this time. I didn't, he says, and the dream river inside her changes direction. She wakes, sitting, breath loud, palms bright with sweat. The cottage is dark. The wolves outside shift their weight, the air full of something listening. A single thunder roll slides across the sky. Low, measured, the way a heart might knock politely on a door it once owned. She stands, takes the wooden box from beneath the bed, and opens it. The feather lies inside like a promise pressed flat. It is cool. It is weightless. It is real. She steps out into the night. The valley wears its darkness like silk. Snowfields reflect what little the sky gives them. The ridge where the palace once cut the horizon bares its teeth, black glass catching stars, nothing else. The wolves already wait at the fence. When she approaches, they bow, every one, and then fan, into a crescent, leaving the path to the ridge open. Elaris walks. The feather rides in her palm. The cold edits her breath down to the truth of it. Each footstep sounds louder than it should, as if the earth has taken its gloves off to listen. She reaches the ridge and stops. Below, the crater where the palace once stood drinks the night. In its center, a faint column of light still climbs into the dark, thin as a scar, steady as regret. She feels the pull of it under her ribs. I kept my side of the promise, she tells the air. I remembered. The wind answers with a single sharp gust that smells of frost and smoke. The wolves shift. Somewhere, a branch breaks under a weight she cannot see. The moon lifts itself above the ridge. Elaris doesn't see it, but her body remembers how its light moves through space, slow, curved, tender until it isn't. The world brightens, not to color but to contour, and in that contour, along the edge of the crater, where ruin learns to resemble a road, something darkens. A vertical seam in the night, a man's height, still, patient. Her pulse stumbles. Kaelin? It comes out softer than prayer, almost laughter, because hope is reckless and doesn't care who's watching. The seam does not answer. It holds its shape like a breath taken and kept. She takes one step forward, then another. The wolves do not follow. They flatten themselves to the ground, ears back, not in fear, reverence. The shadow tilts its head. Light touches one edge of it and stubbornly stays. It learns the slope of a cheekbone, the cut of a mouth she kissed once where gods could see. Her lips part. If you are not real, don't be kind. He moves, not toward her, into the light. The shadow dissolves where it crosses the thin column, and what steps out is a man cloaked in frost and road and a year of almosts. His hair is longer, his shoulders carry winter, but his eyes are the color of storms that do not apologize. She does not run to him. She cannot. Her knees consider the ground, then reconsider. She remains standing because the world has done enough kneeling for her. Say my name, she whispers, because proof is a fragile thing and must be asked for, not stolen. He opens his mouth, but the thunder speaks first. It wraps his voice, brings it to her, sets it down intact. Elaris. The feather in her hand warms, barely, enough to remind itself of fire, enough to remind her of mercy. She takes the last few steps and stops an arm's length away. The air between them crackles with all the words they didn't say to survive the last year. He looks at her hands. You still keep it? I keep what remains, she answers. It keeps me. He reaches, slow, the way you touch an animal that has learned fear for good reasons. and sets his palm under hers, taking some of the feather's impossible light into his skin. He flinches, not from pain, from memory. She swallows. You're warm. I am, he says, a little awed. I didn't know if I would be. What are you now? He smiles, small and wrecked and real. Mortal, he says, hungry, tired, grateful. Freed? The word is careful, as if it might bite. He looks past her at the wolves, at the valley, that forgave what it understood and tolerated what it didn't. No, he answers, not freed, taught. She nods, because that is the only answer that could fit their story and still be honest. Thunder gathers again, softer than before, like someone learning to whisper after years of shouting. The moon's light bends, lays itself over them both as if measuring new edges. Alaris feels the old place under her ribs warm a little more, not a burn, an ember waking to itself. Stay, she says. He doesn't say always. He has learned not to promise what gods enjoy breaking. He says, tonight, and the word holds steady. A single nail set clean into good wood. They stand like that until the wolves lift their heads and the valley breathes again. When they turn toward the cottage, the path knows their feet as if it practiced alone for this. At the fence, the smallest wolf steps into their way and bows to him the way it bowed to her once. He bows back. King or not, it is the right thing to do. They reach the door. He stops with his hand on the latch, looks at her, waits. She sets the feather on the sill and nods. The door opens on the dark her body calls safety. He crosses the threshold. The storm gathers its skirts around the roof and holds, listening. On the eclipse's anniversary, thunder rolls, slow, deliberate, and the cottage fills with a shadow that does not harm. A man kneels in the doorway, eyes storm grey, voice human. Your heart made me live. May I come in? The night is made of teeth. Rain lashes the cottage walls, wind clawing at the shutters as if the storm itself demands entry. The fire has long gone to embers. Alaris sits at the table, her fingers tracing the rim of an untouched cup, listening to the storm breathe like something alive. She's felt it all evening. That weight in the air, that pulse between thunderclaps. It's not just weather. It's memory walking home. Then a knock. No, not a knock. A command. The door bursts open before she can stand. Wind howls through the room, scattering herbs, flinging ash across the floor. In the doorway stands a man wrapped in a cloak of frost and shadow, snow steaming from his shoulders. His hair, darker now, glints with silver threads that once burned like flame, and his eyes, storm grey, too familiar to be mercy. Alaris, he says. Her breath catches. For a moment, the world forgets to exist. It cannot be him. Not after the palace fell. Not after she buried his crown beside her door and whispered his name to a sky that never answered. Kaelin. It is half a prayer, half an accusation. He steps forward, leaving wet prints that hiss against the warm floor. The air between them bends, charged, waiting. She reaches out, hesitates, then lays her hand against his chest. No pain, no fire, only warmth. She gasps. He covers her hand with his own. The flame's gone, he murmurs. It burned itself clean. Tears slip down her face uninvited. You died. I did. His smile is quiet, almost reverent, and she let me come back this way. The wind trembles. The fire rekindles on its own. In its flicker, Alaris sees that his cloak is not made of fabric at all. It's formed of faint light, like dawn deciding to remember him. Meltwater runs down his jaw, but his body gives off heat, the steady warmth of life. He kneels beside her, taking both her hands. His voice shakes. The goddess said the curse could not die, only learn. She gave it to me one last time, not as punishment, but as choice. What choice, she whispers, to love without power. He looks up at her, eyes human, unguarded. I burned down a kingdom thinking I could protect you. Now I can't even light a candle without asking the wind's permission. She laughs through tears, raw, broken, holy. You learnt mercy. No, he says softly. You taught it to me. Thunder cracks overhead, but the storm feels gentler now, more like applause than wrath. The wolves outside begin to howl, long, low, mourning turning into recognition. Kaelin stands and draws her up with him. The world called me untouchable, he says. But your heart. He swallows hard, searching her face as if memorizing the world through her eyes. Your heart made me human. He sinks to one knee, not as a king kneels before his queen, but as a man kneels before the one thing that proved him real. Lightning flashes, whitening the room. The goddess's voice threads through the storm, neither cruel nor kind, but tender. The curse did not die. It learnt mercy. Alaris closes her eyes, tears falling onto his hands. Then let mercy stay, she whispers. Outside, the rain begins to soften, each drop slower, heavier, until the sound fades into silence. She touches his face, hesitant still, afraid of ghosts, and finds none. Only warmth, only breath, only him. Kaelin leans into her palm, eyes closing, his voice barely more than a tremor. If I fall again, promise you'll remind me what we learned. She smiles through the ache. That love is the fire that finally learned to feel. He bows his head against her hands. The world called me untouchable, he says again, the words breaking. Your heart made me human. And outside, the storm kneels too, wind folding into stillness as dawn slips between the clouds. A year passes. The storm that once clawed the heavens now hums only in the lullabies of distant thunder. The valley, once the grave of kings and ghosts, wears to green again. Snow retreats to mountain tops, leaving behind rivers that remember fire but choose peace. At the heart of this reborn world stands a palace of glass and dawnlight, the Palace of Dawn, built not on power but on promise. Its spires gleam pale silver beneath a tranquil moon that no longer bleeds. Alaris stands in the courtyard garden, hands in the soil. Her hair has grown longer, streaked with silver strands that catch moonlight like threads of blessing. Around her, the silver-leaf herbs bloom, plants that once died in shadow, but now thrive under gentler skies. Each sprout hums faintly, alive with what the old priests might have called grace. She calls it forgiveness. Behind her, footsteps, steady, certain. She doesn't turn. You walk like a king, she says. And you plant like one, Kaelin answers. She smiles, not needing eyes to see him. His voice carries warmth, the warmth of a hearth that has learned restraint. He kneels beside her, the soil cool against his palms. They say this courtyard was once where the curse began. It's where it ended, she corrects softly. No, he says, brushing the dirt from her fingers. It's where it learned. The moon rises over them, silver and patient. Its light bends through the new crystal arches, painting their faces in white fire that does not burn. Kaelin looks up, remembering the centuries he spent fearing this light, the judgment, the endless loop of punishment disguised as destiny. Now it feels like home. The people have rebuilt what the curse destroyed. Farmers plant without fear of blight. Children no longer whisper about the Fire King, but sing of the silver-hearted one. The wolves roam free again. Guardians turned companions. And in every village, stories bloom. Tales of a blind girl who saw through death itself, of a king who learned to kneel. At the temple ruins, now an open sanctuary, the goddess's statue stands restored. Eyes carved open, mouth softened into something like a smile. Offerings lie at her feet. Flowers, candles, tokens of hope. Kaelin and Alaris kneel there as the last of the rebuilding bells fade into silence. You built her a smile, Alaris says. He chuckles. She earned it. Thunder rolls far off, not in threat, but as an old friend turning in sleep. She never hated us, Alaris says, her voice distant. She just waited for us to understand. Kaelin studies her, how peace looks on her face, how light rests where pain once lived. And do you? Alaris tilts her head toward him. Understand? She smiles faintly. No, but I believe. And that's enough. He reaches for her hand, hesitant still, as if afraid she might dissolve back into myth. When she threads her fingers through his, the world hums, the low note of balance restored. Later that night, the palace gathers for the moon ceremony. Servants fill the air with quiet music. White petals fall from the arches like gentle rain. Nobles kneel, commoners sing, and even the wolves watch from the outer gates. Eloise walks down the main hall, guided by the faint pulse of moonlight beneath her feet. Kaelin waits at the end, crown in hand, not on his head. The hall glows brighter with every step she takes, until the air itself seems to breathe in time with her heartbeat. When she reaches him, he speaks not as a king, but as the man who once fell to his knees in her cottage, terrified of his own humanity. You saved me when I was fire pretending to be flesh, he says, Tom. You taught me how to live, when even the gods gave up trying. Alaris lifts her face toward his voice, and you prove that even fire can remember gentleness. The hall quiets. Outside, the moon breaks through thin clouds, spilling light like silk over them both. Kaelin places the crown not upon his head, but upon hers. You reign where I could only burn. Alaris shakes her head, smiling. We reign where we finally learn to love without fear. The crowd bows as the moon reaches its highest point. From its light, a soft whisper flows through every soul present. No thunder, no command, only grace. Even curses can be taught to love. The whisper carries across the valley, through forests, rivers, and ruins. Flowers open at midnight. The wolves lift their heads to the sky and howl, not mourning this time, but remembering. Kaelin takes Alaris's hands, their fingers entwined. His heart beats like the first rhythm of creation. I once thought the goddess cursed me because I loved you, he says. But I see now, she cursed me until I did. Alaris laughs, soft and bright. And how does a king live now, free of fire? By keeping one ember, he replies, placing her hand over his heart. You. The moon flares one last time, its light folding into a crown of silver across the sky. For an instant, every living being in the realm feels it, the end of a story, and the beginning of something that no longer needs to end. The goddess's voice fades, but her last whisper lingers. He was the Alpha King no one could touch. She was the girl the moon sent to change that, and though their bond still burned, it was love that finally taught fire how to feel. The petals stop falling, the world exhales, and above them, the eternal moon watches, no longer in judgment, but in joy.